What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Hippo. Welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be doing something very fun, man. We're going to be analyzing this Heat roster top to bottom and see where it ranks in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the Heat made a addition to their roster by signing Caleb Martin to a two-way deal to finalize their 15-man roster. We're going to be talking about, the strengths and the weaknesses of this roster and where ultimately do I think it will end up in at the end of the season in this Eastern Conference, which is getting better by the year. So we're going to be talking about that. So make sure you guys stay tuned, drop a like, subscribe if you guys are new, hit the bell so you guys do not miss a single video, and also hit up my Twitter in the top link of the description so you guys do not miss any tweets, stuff like that, updates. You guys know the drill. So basically what we're going to be doing, like I said, analyzing this Heat roster top to bottom. They made a lot of additions in this free agency, but so did a lot of other teams. I'm going to be giving where I can realistically see the Heat ending up at the end of the season as far as standings are concerned. I'm not going to do playoff predictions and stuff like that because we don't even know what the matchups for the playoffs will be, but I can give my regular season predictions right now. That's what I'm going to do in this video. I will be giving a sort of a range as far as the highest I think the Heat can finish and also the lowest. So and this is going to be like realistic for sure. I'm not going to have any lofty expectations for the Heat, high or low. I'm going to make this as realistic as possible so you guys do not see any bias or anything like that into it, because I do like this roster a lot, but I do think it's going to be challenging to finish as high as some people think we can. So make sure you guys, like I said, enjoy the video and let's get right into it. So obviously the Heat made a lot of additions. Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris, Caleb Martin, re-signing Victor Oladipo, Duncan Robinson re-signing him, Dwayne Dedmon re-signing him, the two-way players from last year, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, and that's about it as far as additions are concerned. And I did talk about the additions and key losses in one of my videos in the past, so I will be linking that in the description if you guys missed it. I kind of gave my breakdown grading each player that we signed, the signing of each player, and also talking about the losses that we had, because we did have a lot of players leave the team. So I'm going to be talking about the impact that they probably could have had on our team if they were still here and how they might be missed. So make sure you guys go check that video out if you guys have not checked that video out, and come back to this video and watch the rest of this video. So now, where do I think that he can finish? Obviously the Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better. Obviously you have the two teams who were neck and neck last year as far as the Nets and the Bucks. Obviously the Nets didn't make the conference finals, but they did face off against the Bucks in the second round, and it was a thriller 7-game series, and who knows if the Nets were healthy how that series would have looked. So in my opinion, these two teams are clear-cut the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and I do think that they deserve their respect, especially the Milwaukee Bucks, who are just coming off a championship. I don't think that there's a big possibility that the Heat finish over any of these two teams. Milwaukee, they just won a championship. They look really good. I did like some of their free agent additions like Grayson Allen and people like that who are shooters around Giannis, but they did lose PJ Tucker, so we'll have to see how that pans out. But they are getting Dante DiVincenzo back, so that will obviously bolster their team. And then for the Brooklyn Nets, I think they were one of the winners of the offseason in my opinion, after already having probably the most stacked roster on firepower, as far as on paper firepower is concerned. With Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, you already have that nucleus there, and then they strengthened in the offseason. Patty Mills, one of the best 6 men in the NBA. James Johnson is a guy that no one really is talking about. I think he can probably do not as good of a job as Jeff Green did, because Jeff Green was a really big piece for them, but he can definitely fill that void in in some sense. They also added 2 guys in the draft that I really liking, Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe. Cam Thomas, I think, is the best scorer in the draft as of right now. I know Jalen Green has a potential to be the best scorer, but as of right now, it's Cam Thomas. And then Day'Ron Sharpe addresses size that they really lacked last year. Paul Millsap, another great addition. I could go on and on about this Brooklyn Nets roster. Like, they did a lot in free agency. I'm pretty sure I'm even forgetting someone. I named like the big additions, but I might even be forgetting some people. So we'll see how the Brooklyn Nets do, but I do think they'll be either 1 or 2 in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, LaMarcus Aldridge coming back from his heart problems. Shout out to him. And yeah, they just have a very complete team. So I'm super excited to see how the Brooklyn Nets do. I think these two teams are 1 and 2 for sure. Locks for 1 and 2, Milwaukee and Brooklyn. After that, I think it's fair game. And I think, the three teams that I really think could fight for the 3 seed are Miami, Philadelphia, and Atlanta. Now, between these 3 teams, I'm going to dissect each team and give cases as to why I do think and why, cases for why this team won't finish at 3, because there are cases to both sides. So starting off with the Miami Heat, because this is the Heat report, I think this team has a very good chance to finish at the 3 seed, because I do think on paper we strengthened a lot more than any Eastern Conference team by adding one of the best players in free agency this year in Kyle Lowry, and also surrounding him with a lot of good veteran role players who can just play their role and fit the Heat culture to a T. I already went through the additions a lot of times, so you guys know who I'm talking about there. And I do think that this Heat team is, on paper, I do think they're the 3rd best team in the Eastern Conference as of right now. So I think that would be a big reason why they could be the favorites to finish at the 3 seed. Now, obviously, I will talk about the other side as to why some people may not have them finishing that high. And I think the main reason is the fact that the Heat always, not necessarily coast during the regular season, but they're not usually super high as far as seeding is concerned. Like apart from the big 3, I don't think we really had any team that finished super high. Like that 2020 season, we were, I'm pretty sure, as high as 2 or 3 at some point, and then we fell down to 4 or 5. Like, I don't think the regular season is something that the Heat really prioritize. I do think they're like a playoff built team. They're a team that's built for the playoffs, and they're a team that really focuses in and keys on the playoffs more than the regular season, because I do think that no matter who they face in the playoffs in the 7-game series, the coaching of Spoelstra and just the Heat mentality, the Heat culture, and the grit that this team has, I do think it gives an edge over a lot of the other teams in the conference. So maybe they won't take the regular season as seriously as the playoffs, but you can never count a Miami Heat team out. And the next team, Atlanta Hawks. I do think that the Hawks are really nice, man. I love their team on paper. I think they had a pretty slept on offseason, in my opinion. I love the DeLon Wright pickup. I think he's very underrated. And obviously they got a backup center now too. While Okongwu's injured, Gorgui Dieng is not some big time player, but he's not a scrub, so he can definitely be a backup center. And then most importantly, they got back John Collins, who is their their second guy after Trae Young, and he's probably going to take a step this year. And they still have their nucleus of wings and Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Solomon Hill. Just drafted Jalen Johnson and Sharif Cooper, who I thought were very steals in my opinion. And they had a very nice offseason in my opinion. Just got deeper. They're probably one of the deepest teams in the NBA, and we'll see how the Hawks do. And I think their depth is probably one of the reasons why you could say they might finish at 3, because they're just very deep on paper. Like, they have a very nice rotation, and you're expecting a jump from Trae Young. You're expecting Trae Young to take that leap. He's a guy that not a lot of people, but myself and some other people, think that he might jump into the MVP, sleeper MVP discussions, because I think he's motivated. He's only, getting better because he's younger, and you have to put some respect on his name for sure. So I think the Hawks on paper are like one of the most deepest teams in the NBA, and especially after their offseason and after they made it to the conference finals last year, you do have to give them their respect. But the only drawback to the Hawks, in my opinion, as to why I don't think they'll finish at the 3 seed is that I just don't think Nate McMillan and that team is as experienced as Philly or Miami. I know they just made it to the conference finals, but I do think that Miami and Philly are more battle tested, especially in the regular season when seeding matters. The Hawks last year in a very long time was their only year that they were really fighting for playoff positioning, and they did exceptionally well. They ended up I'm pretty sure with the 4 seed, but I do think that teams like Philly and Miami, who are more, have a lot more veterans on their squad, and know how to manage yourselves in an 82 game season more than the Hawks do. I do think they have an advantage there, and I do think that Another thing with the Hawks is that after last season's, honeymoon phase, if you want to call it, a lot of people think that they're not going to replicate that. So they might just be calling it, a fluke or something like that, and they might take their foot off the gas. So we'll see what the Hawks do, but that's the case for the Hawks. And then for the Sixers, the Sixers are a big wild card to me because it just depends on what they do with Ben Simmons. Really, like Ben Simmons is really the X factor. Whether they trade him, whether they keep him. If they keep Ben Simmons, I don't see them finishing top 3. I do not, because I just think that Ben Simmons has caused too much, dysfunction in that team front office, locker room, etc. Like his camp has come out and said so much about him wanting to request a trade and not even showing up to training camp and stuff like that. So I think they do have to trade Ben Simmons, and depending on who they trade Ben Simmons for, they could, definitely be the 3 seed, depending on who they get back. Like if it's a trade, with the Cavaliers, which I've seen, with Colin Sexton being involved, he's a very, very good piece, and that could definitely propel them to be a 3 seed. And same thing with like D'Angelo Russell, but I know the Minnesota Timberwolves do not want to give him up. Maybe even CJ McCollum from the Portland Trailblazers, because I know the Dame thing is kind of dead in the water now, because he came out and said he's ready to be with Rip City. So I think the Sixers are like a big wild card. The only reason that they're in this discussion is because they were the number 1 seed last year with virtually the same roster. But as we all know, Ben Simmons is a big question mark right now. We'll have to see what happens with him. And apart from that, I don't really see any other team being a 3 seed. Maybe Boston, if they do well. I think Boston is getting slept on a little bit, but I don't think Boston will finish at the 3 seed whatsoever. But I think it's between these 3 teams. I think Miami has a legit shot of finishing 3, because I do think that on paper, as far as stars and coaching experience, I think Miami's the best team out of the rest. And I do think that they have a legit shot at finishing number 3. The lowest I think the Miami Heat can go is probably, after the Hawks or the Sixers, and maybe even the Celtics. Like I don't know if the Celtics in Miami's worst situation will finish above them, because I still think Miami just has a really, really nice team. But the Celtics could surprise us. The Celtics could surprise all of us. Like I think the Celtics will be a good team. I had them finishing about probably 6th behind these 5 teams I just named. And then you have teams like the Knicks and the Bulls, who I think will round out the 7 and 8 spots. But we'll see what happens. But I do think the highest the Miami Heat can finish is 3, and the lowest the Miami Heat can finish is about 5 or 6. And I think that's a realistic prediction. Maybe if something happens, with the Bucks or the Nets, it only takes, a sprained ankle or something for a guy to be out. And I'm not wishing that on anyone, but I'm just saying, it has happened in the past. So you can't really take that out. You can't really take that with a grain of salt. But I'm just kind of, going to discount that and pretend like every team is going to be healthy throughout the season, which I know is not going to be the case, but I can't predict injuries. So if every team is fully healthy, I think the Bucks and the Nets will finish 1, 2. I don't know what order. I'm probably going to predict Nets 1, Bucks 2. And then after that, best case scenario for the Heat, in my opinion, is to finish at the 3 seed. And then worst case is to finish at the 5 or the 6 seed. And after that, it's fair game to see depending on who we play in the playoffs after the play-in, obviously. But if we are 1 through 6, we will not be in the play-in, so we don't have to worry about that. And the good news is, if the Bucks and the Nets do finish 1 and 2, like I'm predicting they will, we won't have to play the Bucks and the Nets in the first round. So, we'll see. I do think the Heat can surprise a lot of people this year. And we talked about the power rankings. They were 4 in the power rankings from Bleacher Report. I would probably put them around 5. I would probably put the Lakers, the Bucks, the Nets, and the Phoenix Suns as the top 4 teams in the NBA, just because the Suns and the Bucks just went to the finals against each other. And I think on paper, the Lakers and the Nets are the best teams. After that, you can have your discussions with the Heat, the Nuggets, the Warriors, etc. So I think, that's my take on where the Heat can finish. I think at best, probably 3 seed, and at worst, probably 5 or 6 seed. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, man. If you guys disagree with me, let me know. And if you guys agree with me, also let me know. So I'll see you guys later as always. Hit the like button, subscribe if you guys are new. Peace.